Hey, what's up? This is Trey Pierce, audio engineer,
digital director,
director of financial planning and analysis,
senior creative director of A&R,
program director, morning show host,
and you're listening to the Springboard
Music Podcast.
The way I look at it, and at that time, I was so young and new to A&R, I did not really know what I was doing. The way that artist development needs to happen is you have to help an artist figure out what they're going to say and what they're going to sound like with their songs, their music. They have to bring some uniqueness to the table.
The person we're interviewing today is Jon Sell. Jon Sell has a phenomenal track record, and I have had the honor of working with him in a professional setting for over 5 years. He has time and time again built friendships and respect and cultivated a space of creativity and innovation. Jon has worked in radio, A&R, and most recently in artist management and development. I cannot wait for you to learn from him all of his areas of expertise and to hear a little bit more about his path going from the corporate world into a business of his own. You and I met at Capitol and worked together for a couple years, and I know bits and pieces of your story, but I'm really curious, what would you say is a standout moment in your career so far?
A standout moment. Wow.
Yeah, I could guess knowing some of the rumors that I know that you've been a part of, but I'm curious what you would say.
Rumors. Oh man. I feel like for me, I mean, I've had wins, I've had losses. Nobody likes to talk about the losses, but just learning moments. But I think clearly one that got a lot of I guess not notoriety, but it's just one that gets talked a lot about me is I was involved early on in Lauren Daigle's career, and I helped develop her. I helped A&R the first album, and helped put her on the map. And it was a fun process. We really, that's where my love of artist development kind of came from. Is just that whole process. It took about 2 years to really figure out what the right producer was, who the right creative team was around her to help launch her career. And so that was in 2013, and then soon after that,
oh my gosh, 10 years ago. How weird is that?
I know. Yeah, and soon after that, I worked with Jordan Feliz. So super fun. Back-to-back years, I was the A&R on a New Artist of the Year winner at the GMA Dove Awards. So with Lauren, and then Jordan followed the next year. So that was a really fun win for me. And then I would say a standout more recently was I've gone out on my own, and so I'm doing some artist development, coaching, consulting, A&R consulting, but also artist management. And of the two artists that I'm managing, one is with my brother-in-law, and the other is on my own. But we both went through the process to get them both signed. One's name is Seth Schlueter. He's from Ohio, incredible singer and great artist overall, songwriter, and he signed to Provident, Sony Provident. And then we signed the one we're doing together with my brother-in-law, Rachel Mack. She was on The Voice a few years ago, but we signed her to Capitol CMG, where I used to work. And so that does stand out moments for me. Just feel really, I don't know, honored, and that these new artists would entrust me with their careers on a management level, to which I don't really have experience in, except for developing artists on the A&R side within the record labels. So that's been fun to navigate kind of on the outside with some of my old cohorts and friends and colleagues.
As you're describing all of that, I'm thinking of so many full circle moments for you because you said Seth is from Ohio. You're from Ohio. You signed Seth
Sorry, Seth. It's Seth with a PH at the end.
Seth.
Yeah, his name is Joseph.
Glad you clarified that.
His name is Joseph, and he, instead of going with Joe, he wanted to go with Seth, which is very artist-like and unique. So
I like that though. That's good.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm not talking with a lisp, but people when you introduce them, they're like Seth. No, it's Seth with a PH at the end.
Just get him like a name badge that like says that he has to wear everywhere.
For real, it's gonna be a big talking point, and then nobody will care once he has a big song. So
yeah, exactly. But then also signing Rachel Mack, which I know there's so much heat on her right now. I've been seeing a lot of posts and excitement around her at Capitol, where you used to work. How did you get to working with two winners of GMA New Artists back to back from the beginning?
Fell in love with music because I came from a musical family, grew up in the church, but also my sister, who's 5 years older than me, would give me all of her old CDs that she wore out and didn't want to listen to anymore. So that included like old CCM artists like Jars of Clay and DC Talk and Audio Adrenaline, and then when I became a teenager, I started kind of gravitating towards some more of the rock pop punk scene, Reliant K, Switchfoot, alternative music. And when I was a kid, I would sing in church and lead worship and stuff, and I heard about Belmont through a friend, and it was really intriguing, like to go study music business. But I ended up going first semester. I did not like the music business program. There was like 2,000 students, and I'm like, surely there's not enough jobs for all these people. And so I switched to business marketing at Belmont, which had about 15 marketing majors, and I explored different industries. And eventually I started dating a girl, and she's now my wife. Her name is Caitlin. And she was nannying at the time for a guy who worked at Centricity Music and the artist management side of things. And I was really curious about what they did. I said, hey, can we hang out? And that turned into an internship with them for my entire senior year at Belmont. And when I graduated, I didn't have really any job opportunities, other than my advisor at Belmont hooked me up with some trucking company to like start working for them doing logistics. The pay wasn't bad. It was better than a music business job, but it was like 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. 4 days a week or something like that. And I was just like, "No, I'm not going to do that." And then the alternative was a job in radio promotion at Centricity, making significantly less money. But I was like, cool, let's try that. I do not want to do trucking logistics. In fact, I see their trucks around all over the place, and I'm like, man, thank God I did not take that route. So I ended up starting my career in radio promotion with Centricity. At that time, I'm trying to think, they were probably about 7, 8 years old, and we signed Aaron Schust, Unspoken, Jason Gray, Andrew Peterson, and they just started having some bigger and bigger songs in the promotion department. Aaron Schust had a couple big songs, Unspoken. I did what I have done since I was a kid, which is like look for new artists to listen to and share with my friends. And when I was a teenager, I used Napster, and there used to be a site called Pure Volume too, which was kind of like SoundCloud is today. It was before MySpace, and then MySpace happened, and so I just became good at like finding new artists that I enjoyed and that my friends would enjoy, and I'd share it with them. And fast forward to my job in promotion, I was continued to do that, and not using those sites, of course, but using iTunes and Facebook and all the things that were available to me to find new artists. I also had some friends writing songs from Belmont and becoming producers and growing in that area. So I helped a couple of those friends get cuts on records, and then eventually I found enough artists that I'd send over to the A&R team. This guy John Mays, and he was in 2012 was like, "Hey man, I think you might be a good fit for A&R. What do you think about coming to work with us?" And I'm like, "That'd be awesome, man. Like, what does that stand for again?" uh, artists and repertoire. It's this elusive thing. I just knew they worked closely with the artists. Didn't really understand the job, but I think what's funny is I never set out to get an A&R job. I didn't know it existed, but I think if I was 15 again, I'd be like, man, that would be an awesome job to have, because I was doing it as a hobby. And so I continued to do that into my college and professional days. And I had one of the bands I found was this band out of Louisiana called The Assembly, and they had a girl singing background vocals on, I don't know, one of the tracks. Honestly, I don't even remember her singing on it, but Centricity would do these indie artist retreats, and we invited the band up, and we were like, "Hey, we have a spot for a female artist. Would you bring the girl with you too?" And her name was Lauren Daigle. So that's how she
No
was
way.
discovered in a roundabout way. And honestly, I don't think many of us knew she was on Idol. I think she made like 2 minutes of one episode early
Yeah.
on. I don't remember it. You know, I don't even know if I remembered hearing her on the EP I found. I liked the band, The Assembly. They were great. And so they came up to the retreat, and she came with them. And she obviously sh she has, like, just this personality that's contagious. She can relate to anybody. She's got the it factor, I would say. But the band's lead singer, while we're there, got appendicitis and had to go get his appendix removed. And each retreat, they would do, like, everybody would perform a few songs, and so she performed for the band. And the team was just like, "Who is this girl? Where did she come from?" And long story short, she hadn't really written a song, or had been pursuing it on her own as an artist or playing shows or anything like that. It was really a talent signing that the owner of Centricity was like, "Man, I there's something here. Let's put her into development." And so I don't know, 6, 7 months writing songs and trying to figure out what she was gonna sound like and sing. And I feel really blessed to have been a part of that. There was a lot of people who should get the credit for Lauren, especially her and Paul. And I was a small part of that early management, and some of our other management friends that have taken her to where she's at now is pretty incredible.
It's been nuts to watch and so, so fun to see. I'm curious, you mentioned getting her into artist development. What does that look like when a new artist gets put into that hat versus you're signed, let's go?
The way I look at it, and at that time, I was so young and new to A&R, I did not really know what I was doing. You have to help an artist figure out what they're going to say and what they're going to sound like with their songs, their music. Um, they have to bring some uniqueness to the table. They can't just reiterate what's been done before. And then you have to surround them with the right creative team that understands them and has the right chemistry to go and create something that both feels fresh and unique but familiar, and something that's not way outside the box, that's not going to open any doors for them. But how do we get them into the right doors, get them some attention in the market out there in the world, and then they can continue to grow their uniqueness further on once they've had some of those doors open. So if you look at Lauren's career, it's really neat how, like, the first record was, at the time I turned it in, I thought it was, oh, this will never work. It's too outside the box, but it was the right time, right place, and songs just seemed to work. And radio embraced it, and the market embraced it. But then the second record, she took a way more artistic stance on things, and I think, had the second record come out first, we'll never know. But the second record come out first versus the first one, I don't know if it would be embraced the same. Maybe it would, I don't know, but uh, people gave it more attention because the first one had done so well.
What are some ways that a new artist can develop that on their own?
Yeah, I think I start with every artist I work with, and I'm like, okay, why are you doing this? Knowing that will help inform what follows. So it will inform your songwriting, your sound, your goals with your career, because when it gets hard, and it will get hard as an artist because it's not an easy path. If you don't have a firm foundation of why you're doing what you're doing, like, you might give up, And so I think if it's for vanity's sake, it's probably not something that's going to withstand trial if it gets hard. But if it's because you feel called to do this, or you feel uh, like you have a story to tell to help others, if it's for your audience to serve them, those are deeper reasons. And so for me, that has to be foundational before you get into, like, okay, how do I get signed? Because your why might not line up with you even getting signed. Now, if you feel like your story is big enough, your sound is commercial enough to be signed to a major label, then go after that. And so some tangibles, I would say, if that's your path, are to work really hard. No one will care more about your career than you will as the artist. And I can't, as a manager or A&R or label representative, because guess what? I have 10 artists to look after. I can't look after just your career. So work ethic is, like, contagious. Like, we all have worked at labels. We know the team will work hard for the artists who we see working the hardest and that care the most. It's hard not to, versus ones that won't necessarily work as super hard, or uh, they don't care as much, or they're not as teachable. I would say, as an artist, you need to be able to bend, not break. Like, you don't go into a label and go, okay, whatever you want me to sound like, I'll do whatever you tell me. That's not what a label wants. And then vice versa, they don't want an artist that's like, I'm only doing this. I'll never do it how you want me to do it. So being able to bend and be moldable and teachable in moments, uh, to use the label's experience and knowledge and expertise to your advantage. And then I'd say, on the creative side, like, bring a freshness and a uniqueness to be an artist, like, and do things that are a bit different than have been done before, while creating a lot of volume. Like, write 50 songs before you even show anyone. That way you can show the best, you know what I mean? And so, let's take Seth, for example. I met him in 2020. He DM'd me on Instagram after seeing my name on a post. And I thought that was super bold of him. He just sent me like a video, acoustic video. You know, I'm getting those occasionally. I checked this one out and I was like, whoa, this kid's voice is really unique and there's so much character to it. We all know 2020 was crazy. We were shut down. I wanted to bring him to town much earlier than I did. I couldn't because of uh, COVID. And essentially, what I asked him to do was send me one song per week for like 6 months or something like that. And I was at Capitol still, so I was at A&R there. And essentially, it showed me, okay, this kid's serious. He's got a work ethic. He's taking it very seriously, and he wants to go after it and get better. And so eventually, I was able to bring him to town, kind of under the radar. I said, "Look, man, if you can get here, like you could just stay with me at my house, and I'll set you up with a week of rights." And so fast forward, we did that about 6 or 7 times. Like, he came to town, I set him up with rights, and then finally I wasn't at Capitol anymore, and I was like, "Look, I don't know where I'll end up, but I love you. I love what we're doing together. I think we work well, and I'd love to manage you." And so that's kind of where the process started, and where it ended was finally once I was manager and I wasn't at a label anymore. I was like, all right, let's go take the best 5 songs and let's start to shop you around to all the labels. And it was a really fun time because we had everybody was interested, and it came down to a couple different labels, and he felt strongly about one and ended up getting signed. And that's not every artist's story. I've worked with other artists who haven't gotten signed and worked just as hard, and their path might be a little bit different, and they might have to release songs independently, which is more doable than ever today.
When you decided to manage, which you had never done before, you had done radio promotion and A&R. How were you able, like, was there any imposter syndrome? How were you able to be like, yeah, I can do this. I can handle contracts and contacts and getting you exposure. That just feels so gutsy.
Well, I don't know what I don't know, and you know, I just I think the biggest thing you need in a manager is belief, good relationships, and trust. And so I believed in Seth. I think, and I do believe in him. I think he's an incredible artist. He works really hard. I have all the relationships that I need, with especially the labels, the agents. Building new relationships. Honestly, I needed a new challenge in my life as well, and so and then trust, is just over time you built that with an artist or a person, and it's making good decisions and deposits. And I had enough contract knowledge, being in the A&R side of things, to be a bit dangerous in that area. So, I definitely learned a lot on the fly, with conversations, between attorneys and labels and all that stuff. But really, I think a good manager is kind of like the coach of a team, and the artist is the quarterback, or so. It's someone who helps make sure everybody's doing their job and giving good advice to the artist. But it's not going to work if the manager's working harder than the artist, or vice versa. Like, it's a team effort. And so, as far as a gutsy move, it's like I had no other options either. Like, I wanted to work with Seth. I was approached to start a label. I didn't feel good about that. I talked to some other labels about A&R jobs, and I just didn't feel good about that either. I had some good mentors and coaches in my own life saying, "Hey, bet on yourself. Try it. See what happens. What's the worst that could happen? You could fail." and then you have to figure something else out, which, that's where I was at the time. And so, the jury's still out. It's hard to make money on developing artists, but we're figuring that out. And I do a lot of consulting and artist development coaching as something that I offer right now to help provide for my family.
I'm curious, because you've gone from radio to A&R, is that a common department switch? And like, what skills for one help the other?
I felt lost in promotion like the whole time. Like it was not my forte. I learned pretty early on that it's hard for me to promote things if I really don't like, unless I have like serious belief in them. And so in promotion, you're kind of, not that you don't believe in the song sometimes, but sometimes you're just like, I don't know if this one's gonna work. You know what I mean? Like I don't know if I
Totally. Oh, I
feel
know
feel
exactly what
strongly
you
about
mean.
yeah. So it was just hard for me to like sell in that way. But a friend, I'm trying to remember where I heard this, but like good sales is like enthusiasm. Like if you're enthusiastic about something, it's easy to sell. Like you talk about it all the time, whatever it might be. And so I got to the place where I was like, man, I just want to work with artists I love and I'm enthusiastic about. And it's a preference thing and a taste thing, but also as far as the transition happening, like I don't know. People ask me all the time, like, how do I get an A&R job? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how to get an A&R job other than it really is about taste and having a good ear for great talent. And eccentricity, I can't remember who the quote was from, but there was this, it's on the wall there. John Mays had it made into a like a cool wood crafted sign. It says it's a fine thing to have ability, but the ability to see ability in others is a true gift or something like that. And
Hmm.
that's I took that to heart, and I love seeing other people thrive and go uh you know calling out abilities that they don't even know they have sometimes, and running with it. And so that's one thing I love to do, and I think I do it with friends. I do it with artists. It's fun to see other people win.
The skill in both, in radio and in A&R, is to see the ability in somebody, but in radio it's more kind of, and I can say this because I do it's like, hey, we want you to promote this, whereas in A&R you're kind of like, hey, I want to work with this.
Mhm.
So it's a little different in that way. I know when I started in the music industry, I was like, I want to do A&R, because I did the same thing. I would be on YouTube looking up new artists. I found Tori Kelly before she auditioned for Idol and was a huge star. I found Justin Bieber when he was just a busker in Stratford, Canada, and a YouTuber.
That's awesome.
Like I loved it. But what I didn't know is that, and maybe you can speak into this if this is true or not, you nowadays kind of need a good amount of engineering ability, or like an ear for instruments and production and knowing what's what. Would you say that's a myth, or kind of true? Like, you do kind of need to build up that skill.
Yeah, I mean, those skills can be honed in on. Like, I didn't know necessarily how to listen to a mix, you know, before it's mastered, and the technical side. There's A&Rs who are really gifted at that. I would say I'm not as gifted at that side. Like even some of the guys we worked with at Capitol, like they could hear things that I'm just like, I don't even know how you're hearing that. I think it sounds great or whatever. Um, for me, I always approach it from more of like, hey, what does this song make me feel? Like, does it make me lean in and want to listen to more of the song or the artist? or does it not? And so I think the ability to recognize um, hit songs, or at least like raise your hand when you think something is a hit and take a stance on something, that's a risk, because it's like if you're hey, this throwing your neck out there, like putting your neck on the line, like this song's gonna work, like we got to go with it, that's a scary thing to do. um and my every A&R or radio promoter's batting average varies in the seasons that they're in. But the technical side, I think, uh, can be honed in on and learned. Um, I've always been more musical in my life. Can recognize when things are in tune, out of tune. When things sound good. I grew up playing some instruments, and so that definitely didn't hurt me going into that job. I wouldn't say I'm proficient in them, but or proficient in Pro Tools or Logic or any of that stuff. I don't. I I would dread just sitting there looking at the same 4 bars over and over for. But it all works together for greatness. You know what I mean, and excellence. And love those guys who care about their craft that much. And so yeah, and I think
Yeah.
to go back to your question, promotion helped me understand the power of a hit song too, and the tools that we can put out there with partnering with these radio guys and going, hey, will you get behind this artist, not just for one song, but like here's a couple more that we have coming behind it. It launches artists' careers and changes people's lives, and that's the beauty of it to me. One of my favorite things in the world is to like I was probably the fourth person in the world to hear that song "You Say" by Lauren, like, and then to feel it like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like I couldn't have dreamed how far it would go, but like we knew what we had when we heard it. You know what I mean, from the beginning.
I'm curious. So you worked for Centricity, which is an independent label, and then you worked for Capitol, which is part of a conglomerate of Universal Music Group. For people who are like, oh, I'd love to work for a label, what are some differences and similarities and pros and cons to each of, like, if you want to work at a label, here's why you may want to look independently, here's why you may want to look conglomerately?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, and both of them were great experiences. I think Centricity gave me an opportunity to really learn the business from kind of multi-facets, and I started in management and internship there, and then promotion and I was had a front row seat to the marketing team, uh, because we were underneath Steve Ford over there, who ran marketing, and then A&R, moved into A&R with John Mays and publishing. So I got to learn kind of a ton about the whole business for like 6 or 7 years, which was awesome. And then I made the jump to Capital and was like, oh, this is another level of
Yeah.
business and um, the seriousness of it all. And not that Centricity didn't take it seriously; it was just more family run and laid back. And Capital is a machine. Universal is a machine, and they're after market share. And all of a sudden, I'm in these finance meetings and um, P&L meetings and profit and loss statements, and so it was just another level of like business in the corporate side, which I think I enjoyed that part of it because it was new and fresh for a time. And then I think some of the challenges are on on the corporate side are, though, that we have to feed the machine. So you have to make your deadlines to make our numbers to show to the corporate parents so that we, can keep moving the market share up. And I think that can be challenging when you're dealing with artists who are people and human beings, and they have families and they have things they're going through at home that, or we're making art here. So it can be a real challenge um, on that side of things. But also, when the beauty of a machine like that is when you have an artist like Ann Wilson's behind you, when you feed the machine a record that is fresh and artistic and commercial, like, you can see it go and work and create stars overnight, which is awesome. And in the independent world, it's a little bit more of a struggle. It's an uphill battle um, from the beginning to get the attention for, even if you have an Ann Wilson or a Lauren Daigle or Jordan Feliz, like, it takes a little bit more effort and sweat equity because it's a smaller team, maybe less trust in the market at that point to make things pop off so easily. Now I don't think it's as big of a problem for Centricity, but at that time they hadn't had any artists that were as big as Lauren. So anyway, um, pros and cons to each. I think working there internally, um, you know, you're there's bigger expectations probably at a corporation than at an independent company. Um, but I enjoyed both and learned a lot about myself. I'm probably a fit somewhere between independent and corporate, like, so maybe that's why I'm better off right now on my own. Who knows? I might work at one of these labels again someday, but for now, I'm holding things loosely and enjoy kind of the flexibility I have as being out on my own.
I know we referenced a little bit about when you left Capital, you didn't know what you were going to do before you decided to partner with Seth and do your own consulting and managing A&Ring. And we've talked about some of how your experience has strengthened you to make that jump. But I'm curious for the listener to hear a little bit about what inspired you to do this. And you can get as vulnerable as you want or as little vulnerable as you want. But it's I recently went back to the coffee shop where you and I met,
Mm.
and you referenced earlier how somebody said, just bet on yourself. And it was exactly what you said back to me. About a year after you bet on yourself, we wouldn't be here doing this interview if we hadn't met at that coffee shop and you had told me that. And so I'm just really grateful. So I'd love to just chat a little bit about what inspired you to make the change from corporate to your own thing a little bit.
Yeah, I think for me, I loved working with the team at Capital, and I I think I was at a place in my life where I was like a bit burned out from the industry and just making records over and over. And um, I also we had a lot of personal things happening in our family. When I started at Capital, I had one child. Now we have four, and so at the time I was leaving Capital. It was three, and so there's just being pulled from multiple directions and needing a change, really, to shake things up a bit in my own life. And I considered getting out of music business, and I've got a passion for helping others, get their lives in order and examining their own lives. And I've done counseling and therapy for my own self, and um, work with work with guys who are like I was, just like kind of like checked out a bit of their lives, because it can be really hard. And that was all like during COVID and stuff. And I know the whole world was kind of looking at their lives going, what am I doing right now? Is this what I want to be doing? And the grass is always greener on the other side a little bit. But this has its own challenges as well. Like I don't always know, hey, like how am I going to provide for my family in a couple months? I don't know that, but it's like, can I sit in the tension between like my fear and my faith and trust that I will be provided for. Something will come along. And I had a little taste of that too, because my wife has been a freelance designer for years and years. Shout out to my wife, Caitlin. She designed Rachel's logo there, which is awesome on
She
that
did
microphone.
a great job.
Yes. And so, I had a little taste of like what looks like to be freelance. It's kind of feast or famine. Some months are amazing and incredible, and then the next month you're like, oh, I don't know, like thank God for last month. So for me, I just didn't have any other options. I was like, I've always kind of dreamed and wanted to do my own thing, and a friend of mine, Grant Hubbard, Mike McCloskey, some guys in the industry encouraged me to go for it and see what would happen. Steven Brewster is another guy. He does kind of what I do for churches and things like that. And so it's worked out for me right now, and I'm like I said, I'm holding this season very loosely and just going, okay, really, God is my provider. So how do I sit in the tension of that every day? And some days I feel great, and some days I don't. So it's just kind of what life is, I think.
I was listening to Pastor Darren Whitehead on a podcast, and he was talking about the transition from a big church in Chicago to starting a church in Nashville. And when he was still in Chicago, he was speaking about it to like a community group that he was participating in. And he started getting really emotional. And he was like, I just want to be able to provide for my family. He had 3 kids, and somebody looked at him and said, do you think it's you providing for your family now?
Mm,
And that has always stuck with me as I took my leap, is like, I never was providing for myself, no matter what avenue it came from. It was always by the graciousness of God. Obviously that's not condoning like taking uncalculated, irresponsible risks, but like it gives me so much peace when, yeah, you don't know where you're going to be in the next couple months. And I think it can be even scarier when your spouse is freelance too. My husband, 100% commission. And so we were like, okay, so we're literally like this and like this.
yeah.
Like, we're both like hands up and out and hands up into a shrug. Like we don't know what's happening, but we're giving it all. Which is kind of cool. I know I'm sure when you made the leap, there were some blind spots, like some challenges where you're like, oh, I didn't think about that. For me, oh, I have to be my own IT person.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
What were some of the blind spots for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think being your own boss is, some days you're really motivated and some days you're not motivated. One, I think that's okay. I think we're too hard on ourselves sometimes, as Americans or people in general are high achievers. I worked really hard for like 10 years, and it's okay to like rest and be filled up, but then also knowing when to like press go and to get after things. And so I think that can be a big challenge. If you're not self motivated, like probably isn't the best path for you. Thankfully, I had enough self motivation at the time to like, I'll also have extra motivation with how many children I have and all that to keep providing. And so, and really to trust God, but really the biggest hurdle is that it really is not leaning on your own understanding and your own strength and going, God, I feel weak right now. Like, I don't know how I'm going to provide. Like, I need you. So my therapist says, like, you need, as adults, we become less needy, but the one of the keys to life is to become more needy again. Like, every day, get more needy with God, with others, with relationships. And there was a time in my life where I didn't feel like I needed anything, and that's not a good place to be in. So I would say that was a blind spot for me. And then just being humble, and going, I don't know what I don't know. And I was on the phone with an agent the other day, and I was like, "Hey, man, I know I say I'm a manager, but I don't. When you send me this offer, I have no idea what I'm doing here. Can you explain it to me like I'm dumb, please?" Because so having like the humility to go and ask questions again, and like not pretend like I know what I'm doing in that area. I'm I think I have understanding on the development and creative side and A&R side and somewhat of the business side, but as far as like live touring and events, like I know I'm not the best person for that job yet. I need to learn a lot. And so just having the humility to go, "Hey, can you help me with this?"
I love how you said, I know I'm not the best person for the job yet. You're not counting yourself out. That's another example of the humility. I've learned that as well. It's like when I go to somebody and say, I don't understand this, will you explain this to me? Because there's no way you're going to know the whole industry ever. Um, I've learned that builds trust and rapport, and it gives kind of like a core memory with that person to you a little bit, and it builds relationship. Um, I love that you are encouraging others to do that, because I think we need more of that. And I think we would be able to link arms faster and stronger if we came right out of the gate and said, I don't understand. Help me out, and just do it with grace. And you mentioned that you're managing somebody with your brother-in-law,
Mhm.
and you also sometimes partner with your wife, Caitlin, on some things. So how do you, and then also you talked about the flexibility with working for yourself, and you have 4 kids. What are some like rules or boundaries or guidelines that you put around work, life, harmony, and relationship?
The problem with the work that we're in is it's never over. So there's always more to do. There's always something else to do. There's always a new relationship to build. So you just have to like um, be okay with like putting some things off for a little while so you can go get what you need. Like I said, you become more needy. So if I need to go focus on my physical health and work out, or I love pickleball, so I'll go play pickleball a little bit. Like I'm gonna go do that. And just because I'm not working doesn't mean I'm not thinking or spending some time resting or uh, doing PMR, prayer, meditation, and reading. Like that can be the work that we're doing. Like that's part of our work. There's a great uh, author named Peter Scazzero. He wrote a book called Healthy. What's it called? Emotionally Healthy Spirituality.
Yes,
And he has
I've
a
read that. I have it
yeah,
up here somewhere.
yeah, and he has a devotional called the Daily Office, and he talks about our time with God is part of our work, and that's just so foreign to us. But like starting with prayer, meditation, and reading gets us in the right mindset to go, okay, God, like I'm going to work today, but all the results come from you. They don't come from me. So help me to show up and know what to do today and follow your will. That's hard to do, but one day at a time, I think it can be done.
It's so hard to do. It's hard to do whether you're starting out your career. It's hard to do whether you're finishing out your career. It's hard to do when you're transitioning. It's hard to do when it comes to if you want a life partner. It's hard to do in everything. But I think that there can be a lot of peace in the surrender of it. We've walked through a lot of big moments. We've walked through how when you were younger and your sister would give you her worn out CDs, and then you were able to pursue a career in music, in A&R or in radio, and then at Capitol in A&R, and now doing your own consulting and managing and having 2 huge wins recently with Rachel Mack and Seth. Would you say that you're living the dream?
That's a good question. I think my life right now is like day to day. For today, I'm like, man, I have everything I need, and if I can focus on that, I'm like, this is the dream. Like, not to worry about tomorrow. But also, life isn't that easy. You know what I mean? And so there's a real challenges in my own life, my family's life, in the world today. And so I think living the dream is like, what's the dream? I think maybe a few years ago I would have said that, but today I'm like, man, there's just too much in the world out there to try and do and combat, and like there's still much more I want to try to do, and whether I succeed or fail, I'm going to wake up and have feelings about it. And there will be a lot of disappointments and a lot of wins, but I don't know if I am living the dream quite yet, other than like I have a beautiful wife, 4 beautiful children, and we're provided for today, and everybody's healthy, and that to me is like the dream right now, that like I can be a good husband and a good dad. And what I'm doing with my time and work, it's like, as long as I can keep doing the husband thing and the dad thing well, like of course I want to have a bigger purpose than just that, but that to me is like part of the dream, you know what I mean? So if I stay healthy in that, stay connected to God, people who care about me and myself, then that's the dream. And it's a daily struggle.
I love that that's what you said, because I think if you say that your dream is your career, that can be taken like that.
Oh, totally.
And
You're
so
you're
if you're like,
replaceable. You're replaceable at your jobs. You're replaceable. So where are you not replaceable? Well,
right.
at home, you're not replaceable, And so if we get caught up in our dream, in our jobs or careers or what we think is our dream, it'll leave you more empty, versus like what truly matters.
I hope you enjoyed this interview with Jon Sell. We have taken our friendship from just music related things now into the Formula One space. He and his wife, Caitlin, and my husband, Cole, and I all saw each other at the 2022 Austin Grand Prix. So much fun. And here's a great little unknown fact. Jon's wife, Caitlin, is a graphic designer, and she actually was so generous and designed all of the branding for Springboard Music. So the S&B integration, the Springboard Music podcast cover art, that is Jon's wife, Caitlin. She is incredible and completely turned my vision into life. If you're looking for any graphic design needs, Caitlin Sell is your girl.